Introduction. Khaled Hosseini's The Kite Runner is a coming-of-age novel that follows the unlikely friendship between two Afghan boys. The novel is written from Amir's point of view, causing the events in the story to be interpreted through his perspective. The novel explores complex themes concerning redemption, loss, violence, and political strife, providing unique insight into Afghanistan's history through the story of two boys' attempts to reunite with each other. The remorseful and nostalgic tone of the novel serves as a reminder that although one character achieves happiness, many others face unfortunate fates as the novel progresses.
Some of the most important characters in The Kite Runner are as followed. Amir is the narrator and the protagonist. Hassan is Amir's best friend and is secretly his half-brother. Baba is Amir's father, and Sohrab is Hassan's son. Asef is the main antagonist. The story is set from the 1960s to 2001 in Afghanistan, a Middle Eastern country. The main characters are from Kabul, its capital city. Later, Amir and his father migrate to live in America's Northern California.
So the main plot of The Kite Runner is mainly a story about two young boys that are growing up in Afghanistan and their adventures during this time and their friendship, while simultaneously the fall of Afghanistan is occurring and they each get separated and go their separate ways. And this entire plot is centered around shining a new light on Afghanistan and creating a symbolism behind the friendship and the societal barriers that occur.
Some of the most important scenes in the story include Hassan's rape, Ali and Hassan leaving Baba's estate, Amir and Baba fleeing Afghanistan to go live in America, Amir marrying Soraya in America, Amir returning to Afghanistan to find Hassan and instead finding Sohrab, Amir facing Asef for the final time, and Amir returning to America with Sohrab and flying a kite for the first time since Hassan's rape. The two main themes in The Kite Runner are the importance of redemption and political corruption's effects on personal lives. The theme of the importance of redemption can be seen through Amir's own redemption at the end of the novel. The Kite Runner is a coming-of-age story, and as Amir progresses through life, he seeks redemption for his failure to save Hassan from being raped. He carries his guilt until he is redeemed by saving Sohrab, freeing him from his past mistakes. The other theme of political corruption's effects on personal lives can be seen when Amir's life is changed forever after the bloodless coup in Afghanistan. The political turmoil outlined in the novel leads to violence and hatred, forcing Amir and Baba to leave, changing their lives forever. Once Amir is in America, he loses sight of what's happening in Afghanistan and only sees the effects of political corruption once he returns to find Hassan. The Kite Runner is written in the first person from the perspective of Amir, who is the protagonist. This first-person perspective allows the reader to gain unique insight into Amir's thoughts, as well as experience events in the novel in the ways that he does. Unfortunately, Amir's point of view limits the scope of the narrative, because only Amir can provide commentary, so when he moves to the United States halfway through the book, you lose sight of what happens in Afghanistan. The aspects of the book also come from Amir's memory, as he recalls important events in his life that made him the person he is, making them unreliable at times.
So some important biographical events were that Khaled Hosseini was born in Kabul, Afghanistan. His family was an affluent family in Afghanistan. His mother taught Persian literature, and his father worked at the embassy, the foreign embassy. And as a result of his mother being a literature professor, he had an early love for writing and pursuing his own stories. His family life was tumultuous, and they were constantly moving from Kabul to Tehran to Paris and later to America. And He came to America when he was 15, after the monarchy was overthrown. He knew no English and had to live on welfare for a period of time. But he studied, he got his medical degree from UCSD, opened up his own private practice, and wrote The Kite Runner in the morning in order to try and shine a new light on Afghanistan.
There is an abundance of historical information about Afghanistan that contributes to the plot of The Kite Runner. In the early 1970s, the mishandling of economic hardship caused by a drought led to a bloodless coup. In 1978, a new group took over, imposing Marxist reforms and aligning Afghanistan with the USSR. The USSR eventually sent troops to Afghanistan and imposed their own president. After the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan, the established government lost ground to guerrilla forces. Eventually, Kabul was captured by these forces in 1992. In 1994, a militia of Pashtun Islamic fundamentalists, the Taliban, attempted to gain control of Afghanistan. They were able to capture Kabul and declared themselves as the official government of Afghanistan.
Set in the Eastern world, cultural information is important to the understanding of the Kite Runner. As a central land in the Middle East, Afghanistan is a melting pot of different ethnic groups. Beliefs nationwide are strong, however, as 99% of Muslims follow societal norms and values of patriarchy, loyalty, and community. The Pashtuns were one of many ethnic groups in Afghanistan. Amir and his father are Pashtuns. Their Persian language of Farsi is used throughout the novel. Pashto people follow Pashtunwali, an unwritten societal code of standards and practices. Pashtuns emphasize the weight and importance of shame and retribution. Before the turmoil of war, Afghanistan freely enjoyed popular music, movies, and other media. Children engaged in the sport of kite running, the namesake of the novel. Players fly kites and fight to keep their kites flying the longest. Runners race to catch losing kites that have fallen. Since its publication in 2003, The Kite Runner has accumulated many different awards. In 2012, it was chosen for the first World Book Day in the United States. It also made the list for Book Sense bestseller list sensation. Impressively, the work also won the Book Prize. Along with these nominations, the book also won the Barnes & Noble Discover Great New Writers Award. It also won the ALA Notable Book and the Alex Award. The list goes on to include the Borders Original Voices Award, Entertainment Weekly's Best Book, San Francisco Chronicle Best Book of the Year, and Literature to Life Award. As seen through these many awards, this book is a great book that many have enjoyed. Khaled Hosseini's talent in telling stories is one that not only deserves award and praise, but also demonstrates why he has received these awards. Throughout the lifetime of the book, the continual amount of awards shows the world the never-ending legacy that Hosseini has created.
In Sarah O'Brien's literary criticism on The Kite Runner, she analyzes the allegorical nature of the novel and how it contributes to the translation of Amir and Hassan's trauma in the story. O'Brien claims that Hassan's rape and Amir's childhood trauma from witnessing Hassan's rape are symbolic of Afghanistan's trauma as a nation due to the constant power struggles plaguing the country. She also states that Hosseini writes the story with the knowledge of Afghanistan he received while his parents moved to France and America, giving him very limited insight into the nation's trauma after the coup. Hosseini writes the main character to experience events similar to the ones he did so that his perspective and interpretation of Afghanistan's internal conflicts are not false or speculative. By writing Amir's perspective from a westernized viewpoint, he makes Afghanistan easier to understand for those who are unfamiliar with it, furthering the symbolic nature of Hassan and Amir's trauma as reflective of Afghanistan's trauma. O'Brien provides a unique and detailed perspective on The Kite Runner, showing that the significance of the novel is derived from its symbolic nature.
This literary criticism was centered around observing kind of the contrast of the immigrants who have a Western background and a Muslim background, and how this plays a role in the book and in Khaled Hosseini. So this refers to the idea of how the homeland is constantly being changed throughout the book. At one point it's Afghanistan, at the next point it's America, and people keep on becoming more and more Americanized, specifically Amir in this example, and there's this constant shift. So it also observes how Hosseini is trying to provide a new perspective to Westerners on Afghanistan, and this conflict between these two countries.
Postgraduate student Ting Wen makes analysis of Amir's character growth through Sigmund Freud's personality structure theory. She states that Amir goes past the drive of his greedy id to reparation through a new and strong ego. Wen's criticism and connections provide understanding of biological, sociocultural, and even existential influences that drive Amir's action and the plot as a whole. Wen's literary criticism is useful as it uses social science to interpret the meaning of the novel and the development of its characters.
So for symbols, the first one is after Amir went to save Hassan's child. He got in a fight with Asif and split his lip in two right down the middle. And this is symbolic of Hassan's cleft lip as a child, although initially Hassan's lip was a sign of shame. Amir's lip is a sign that he bore the responsibility that he had to, and in to some degree paid his respect to Hassan. Another one is how the kite symbolizes Amir's happiness before Hassan becomes raped. It has a symbolism behind it of how the kite changes when Amir witnesses Hassan's rape, since it's a reminder of his betrayal to Hassan, and the kite will never fly again. Another one is how the scar becomes more and more faint, which is an indicator of not only, Hassan healing, but also of how the money couldn't fix the problem that he was now faced, and his emotional problems, and how he is now fixed on the outside but broken on the inside. It's also reflective of how the way of life died that he had with Amir, and so did the relationship. Another one is the rape and violence which occurs, and this is very impactful because this theme of violence is not forgotten throughout the book, and that initial event impacts each person's life.
By reading Amir's first-person narration, there is many insights that can be found through the narrator's style. We notice that Amir tends to describe dramatic events indirectly. He never states that Hassan was raped, instead opting to describe Hassan's face during the event. This shows the limited narration style Amir provides because he is unable to acknowledge certain events. When Amir can describe an event, his narration guides the reader through the novel through storytelling. Memories or constant practices are described through storytelling from the first person. Amir's engaging first-person narration captivates the reader into the story. Therefore, they are ready to detect other stylistic choices of the narrator voice. For example, we can notice that Amir's style is very readable diction that uses a complex style that captivates readers. The quote that describes Amir's thoughts of Soroya, his future wife, are one example of his readable but complex diction. Finally, we realize that Amir's narration is very straightforward and intimate, which allows for a connection to be made with Amir. When he feels bad, we feel bad, and to some degree it allows us to relate to his mistakes. He feels bad for not standing up on his friend and describes his nightmare after it. We are invited to understand what is in Amir's mind, and we can feel empathy through it. Amir's character development is essential to the plot and theme as a whole. We recognize that an important point in Amir's character development is as Amir stands up to Asef and is nearly killed as he saves Sohrab, Hassan's son. Amir was a young boy and a coward growing up, never defending his friends and letting Hassan take all of the blame and punishment for his wrongdoings. However, as he sacrifices himself, it is seen that Amir has evolved into a man that can stand up for what is right. After passing out from the fight, Amir has a dream that he is battling a bear with his father alongside him. As a kid, Amir always looked up to his father's strength in fighting a bear. Now, however, Amir realizes he has fought his own bear through facing Asef, the battle that ended shame from him and his father, who were deceitful and caused wrong to Hassan, his family, and others. After Amir's redemption through facing Asef, Sohrab's character is important to Amir's final stages of development. He says, "For you 1,000 times over." It is shown that Amir has come to terms with his betrayal of Hassan and has finally redeemed himself by saving Sohrab. Amir's redemption at the end of the story shows his development from a naive young boy to a mature and self-aware adult.
The Kite Runners' association with Afghanistan is extremely important because the violent events in the story are reflective of the violence that occurs in Afghanistan while the main character is away in the United States. The raping of Hassan is reflective of the fall of Afghanistan and the violence that follows. Afghanistan takes on very different appearances in the beginning and end of the novel. In the beginning, there is a very idyllic description of Afghanistan where the country is prosperous and peaceful, but at the end of the novel, Afghanistan is destroyed by war and corruption as a result of Taliban rule. This is best exemplified through Farid telling Amir that Kabul is not the way he remembers it. The setting of America causes a change in the novel. As California distances Baba and Amir from Afghanistan, the two men find themselves either burying memories of Afghanistan or mourning them. The distant setting reveals the importance of Afghanistan as the setting of the main character's home. The difference between Afghanistan and America is really different as seen through Sohrab's reaction to the lady in America being nice to him. This is a stark contrast because of how horribly he was treated in Afghanistan due to Asef being a bad person not only to his father but to him as well.
The close reading I chose to do was when Hassan was raped by Asif. And the quote is here. So the first time I read it, I found it really impactful that Hassan was being raped in the first place. But the second time I went over it, I started realizing how it was evident that Hassan wasn't struggling and was almost accepting the fact that he was getting raped and there was nothing that could happen about this. And I kind of connected in my mind how this played into the societal factors of the Hazaras being lower. And in my third reading, I kind of arrived to the theme of it, which was how Hassan was the lamb that was sacrificing himself so that Amir can get the kite and make his father proud. And he was willing to do this at all costs.
The close reading passage I chose is centered around the final scene of the novel when Hassan's son has Amir run a kite for him. During my first read, I mainly noticed that the writing style of this particular section of text was a bit different than other parts of the novel. The sentences were short, concise, and choppy, unlike other parts of the book. During my second read, I was able to see the parallels between Amir saying, "For you 1,000 times over," and Hassan saying it prior to his rape when he goes to retrieve the fallen kite. During my final read, I was able to understand the importance of this passage and what it contributed to my understanding of Amir's redemption arc. Amir's rescue of Sarab did not excuse his inaction during Hassan's rape, but it did show that he had changed as a person and was willing to protect the last remaining piece of Hassan that was left in his life.
My close reading passage follows when Amir is back to Afghanistan and Farid, his driver, criticizes him about how always being a tourist there. He just didn't know it. Upon first read, I can read that the text is about how Amir has really never seen such horrible poverty in Afghanistan, and Farid quickly recognizes that Amir's privilege and ignorance toward the problems in his own country kind of show that he was too rich to really be engaged in true Afghanistan culture and life. At second read, I can see more details about the use of imagery and Farsi language through Hosseini's writing. The imagery of the old man really strengthens the understanding of Afghanistan's widespread life of poverty, especially after the wars have happened. Finally, at third read, the inclusion of Amir's foresight sparks my interest, because not only does it characterize Amir to usually think before he responds, but the quote depicts the loyalty and strife in Afghanistan as they do not welcome the wealthy like Amir, who were able to escape the country during its time of turmoil. Ben's close reading was upon Amir's encounter with Sohrab in Asaf's headquarters. He says, "During my first read, I saw a connection between the coy smile to Asaf's evil nature. However, on second read, I related this coy smile and the words 'to him' to the time where Asaf raped Sohrab's father Hassan in the beginning of the story. This led to my third read about a generational parallel between these two, because of how Asaf violated both Hassan and his son, which led to his plan of ethnic cleansing."
Amir's character development in The Kite Runner is less straightforward than other characters. In the beginning of the novel, he is portrayed as a naive child who only focuses on receiving his father's support. This is evident when he witnesses Hassan's rape and claims that he ran because he was a coward. Towards the middle of the novel, he gains independence and is able to move on after his father's death. Unfortunately, he still deals with his guilt surrounding Hassan's rape and struggles to properly deal with this trauma. At the end of the novel, Amir finally redeems himself by traveling back to Afghanistan to make amends with Hassan, only to save his son Sarab from Asaf's clutches. His growth as a character is displayed in the way he is able to prove himself by dedicating himself to Sarab and persevering to get him to America. He gives Sarab the dedication he was never able to give Hassan, redeeming himself and ridding himself of the guilt associated with his trauma in the process.
Later in the novel, it is revealed that Baba's character growth is essential to the plot. Although the beginning of Baba's character are not revealed until his passing, Baba's character development can be analyzed as he progressed past deceit and adultery. His reparations for his wrongdoings are founding the orphanage and giving great care to Hassan and Ali. One big gesture he grants Hassan is a surgical fix of his cleft lip that marks Hassan as an inferior. Baba also reflects on the hate for his sin of theft that proves his moral growth. Finally, toward the ends of his life when he lives in America, Baba shows great care to Amir in his eagerness to help him arrange a marriage with Saroya. Baba's character, although fluctuating due to instances of stubbornness, has grown from his deceit into a generous, loving, community-oriented figure whose funeral stirred the hearts of many. Without his growth, Amir would never have been able to complete the generational reparations toward Hassan's family.
Asif's character development was a very negative one. He already started off as a negative and bad child that wanted to inflict pain on others and was in support of some questionable ideas and societal division. And you can see this when he's threatening people at the beginning. But then, towards the middle, he's actually taking action, as shown through the raping of Hassan, where he's actually taking physical action to do something negative to other people, not just to say something. And then at the end of the novel, we see how he has become even worse by being one of the leaders in the Taliban and raping and killing people, even raping little children. So he went from a bad person to an absolutely horrible person throughout the duration of the novel.
As Hassan's character has been very transparent from the beginning of the novel, Hassan is a static character. Even though he is static, he is very important because he doesn't betray Amir ever, and he is the most loyal person in the book. When he comes back from retrieving the kite, he said to Amir, "For you 1,000 times over." He also shows his loyalty when he let Amir throw pomegranates at him in order to make him feel better. Then Hassan did pick up the pomegranate. He walked toward me. He opened it and crushed it against his own forehead. "There," he croaked, red dripping down his face like blood. "Are you satisfied? Do you feel better?" He turned around and stared down the hill. His loyalty is also seen when he talks to Farzana and Sohrab about them growing together and the good times they had.
The AP prompt we chose was from 2016, and we decided that this prompt was perfect for the Kite Runner because there were multiple instances of deception in the story containing a multitude of characters. Amir's deception of his betrayal, Baba's deception of his relationship with Hassan, and Hassan's deception regarding stealing Amir's watch are all prominent plot points that contribute to the progression of the story. These instances of deception have a major impact on the theme and message of the novel, leading to character development and important realizations. There are multiple different educational approaches that can be used to increase a reader's understanding of the Kite Runner. Understanding the historical context of the novel would have made it significantly easier to read and interpret. The novel is centered around Afghanistan's tumultuous history and transition from peace to violence, so understanding the historical circumstances surrounding the plot would help readers interpret the novel better. Talking about different types of trauma would also help readers form better conclusions about the text. Traumas associated with war, sexual assault, harassment, and violence are often addressed in the book, so understanding the psychological implications of these circumstances could help readers understand trauma's effects on certain characters.
In our reading group guide, we discussed that if we were to teach this novel, the main focus would be on recognizing the powerful motifs and parallels throughout the story. Given the rather mature content of the book, we would say it would be best appropriate for those in high school or older. This said, we enjoyed the book, and it even made Ben not want to ever put it down, which led to him finish it in 2 sittings.
In conclusion, I believe that The Kite Runner was an essential book for anyone and everyone to read. It was a bit more hard to digest and slightly too powerful at times, but I think it really served a good purpose in providing a new perspective on the Afghanistan country and the way of life there, and also a good way to understand the social division that is occurring within that region and the injustice that Afghanistan as a whole has been served. And I think it's really important for people in the Western culture to read this because it kind of serves as a wake-up call as to what is happening around us in the world.